Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. UK Yadav, PGT Bio at JNP Samastipur, Bihar. And today, I would like to discuss the questions of pre-board class 10 science, especially in biology section. And overall, the portion of biology was for 18 marks. Out of 18 marks, there were 4 questions of 2 marks. That means altogether 8 marks. 2 questions for 3 marks. That means 6 marks. 8 plus 6, 14. And 1 question of 4 marks. That means altogether 18 mark question. And the number of questions were, the question number was 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13 and 15. That means 4, 5, 6, 7 question of 2 marks each. Again, question number 12 and 13, 3 marks each. And last question, that is question number 15, that was of 4 marks each. So let us discuss right from question number 4. Yes, this is the first question, that is question number 4 in the pre-board. Question is, DDT is a pesticide which is widely used in agriculture. It is well known. Through runoff, it reaches to the water body and enters into different food chains. One of the aquatic food chain is given. This is the food chain, and in this food chain, while we are moving from left to right, or if it is in pyramidal form, then while we are moving from bottom to top, what happens? The amount of energy is going to decrease, and that is following law of 10%. But in case of DDT, and this DDT is non-biodegradable chemical substance. It is non-biodegradable. That means biologically there are no enzyme in any organism which can degrade, which can break down this DDT. That means what will happen? The amount of DDT will go on increasing. That means from left to right, here it is 0.003 parts per billion. Out of 1 billion, this is 0.003. That is the amount is very meager, a small amount. Here it is 0.04 parts per million. It was billion, now it is million. In a small fishes, it is 0.5 parts per million. Again, in large fishes, it is 2 parts per million. And in fish-eating birds, it is 5 parts per million. That means the amount of DDT, the amount of non-biodegradable chemicals, that is going on increasing from left to right or from bottom to top in a food chain. That means the amount is going to increase. Why it will increase? Because in water the amount is very lesser, but that water is being consumed continuously by the zooplankton, by the phytoplankton, again by the zooplankton. So the zooplankton, for its whole life, they have consumed so much amount of water. So that was utilized, but the amount of chemical, amount of non-biodegradable substances like DDT, that accumulated in their body. So the amount increased here. Likewise, zooplankton is being eaten by small fishes. So small fishes in their lifetime, they have eaten so many zooplanktons, and the DDT that has been accumulated in their body. So the concentration is going on increasing. So the term biomagnification has been given. Here it is question, name the process responsible for increasing DDT concentration in food chain. So it is termed as biomagnification. So the term for the process has been given, biomagnification. That means the amount of non-biodegradable substances is going to magnified in a food chain. Or bioconcentration, the concentration is increasing in a food chain. Or bioamplification. And the second part, the part B, what is impact of DDT on fish eating birds? Naturally, the birds which are depending upon the feces. That means the amount of DDT is very high in fish-eating birds, and it was investigated in America, in Michigan City, Michigan Lake, that the number of pelican birds decreased, and it was question mark for ornithologists. Ornithology is the branch of study of birds, and the persons who are engaged in studying birds, they are termed as ornithologists. So it was the question, what is the reason behind the death? What is the reason behind the decreasing number of pelican birds nearby the Michigan Lake? So it came to the light after long investigation that due to increased amount of DDT in birds, it interferes the uptake of calcium. It interferes the metabolism of calcium. That means there will be lack of calcium in the birds, and you know well that birds are oviparous. That means they are egg-laying animals. Birds are egg layers. So the formation of egg cell requires amount of calcium, and if there will be lesser amount of calcium, then what will happen? The egg cell will become fragile, the egg cell will become weak, and due to weakening, due to thinning of the egg cell, the premature egg cracks, and that leads to the death of the newborn baby of the birds, and ultimately it will lead to the lesser population of the bird. And if the scenario remains same, then what will happen? A time will come when that bird will become extinct due to the excessive use of these harmful chemicals, non-biodegradable chemicals. So what is the impact of DDT on fish-eating birds? Impact will be, there will be death of premature birds. That means due to interference in the metabolism of calcium, the egg cell will become thinner or weaker, and it will crack prematurely, and that will lead to the lesser population, decrease in the population of the bird. So the second part, that means the impact of DDT on fish-eating birds. DDT interferes the metabolism of calcium, due to which egg cell becomes thin. As a result, premature cracking of egg, leading to decrease in the population of fish-eating birds, because there will be death of the newborn baby which is not completed its embryonic development. They will come out of the egg cell due to cracking of the egg cell. That means there will be death of the premature baby of the bird, and ultimately that will lead to the decrease in their population, or finally there may be extinction of the community of that particular bird. So we must consider, and we must use another way for regulating the insecticide, pesticides, and that has been given by biocontrol with the help of biotechnology and with the help of predator and prey relationship. That will be dealt in your higher classes. This is the odd, that means the substitute of question number 4. That means whether you had to solve that one or this one, and this is the question of same level from same chapter. So here it is, consider the following food chain. Food chain has been given, and then there are two food chain. One is comprising of 4 trophic level. There are 4 members in food chain. Plants, that means producers, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. Plants are being eaten by mice, and mice is eaten by snake, and again hawk eats snake. That means snake is eaten by hawk. In another case, plant is eaten by mice, and mice is eaten by hawk. If the energy available at the producer level of both the food chain is 100 joule, in both the cases the amount of energy available to plant is 100 joule, in which case hogs get more energy. हॉग इस दोनों में से किस फूड चेन में अधिक एनर्जी ऑब्टेन करेंगे? Justify your answer. So let us see the food chain in nature depicts who eats whom, and in any food chain while we are moving from left to right, the amount of energy is going to be decreased, because if energy is available with plant, they will utilize that energy for their survival, and the energy remaining with the plant for handing over to the next trophic level will be only 10%. That means if in both the cases the amount of energy is 100 joule, then what will happen? From 100 joule it will hand over 10%, that means 10 joule to its next trophic level. That means they will get 10 joule of energy. Further, they will hand over 10%. That means here it will be 1 joule. Here it will be 1 joule. So, in both the food chain, you can see that here the hog is getting 1 joule, but here the hog will obtain only 10% of 1. That means 0.1 joule. Here it is 0.1 joule, here it is 1 joule. So it is clear that in second food chain the amount of energy is greater than that of first food chain. That means in which case hog get more energy, the hog will get more amount of energy in second food chain. Justify your answer. Because the number of trophic level, the number of members in food chain is lesser in second case, and therefore the amount of energy available to the top consumer, to the highest trophic level, will be higher. So in nature, the number of food chain has been restricted to 4 or 5. If the number of members in a food chain, the number of trophic level increases, then what will happen? The amount of energy available to the top consumer, the amount of energy available for the highest trophic level, that will be bigger, that will be very lesser, and that will be insufficient for their survival. So here, by following the law of 10%, the amount of energy received by hog is greater in case of second food chain, and by how much it is greater? It is 0.1 and it is 1. That means it is 1/10 of this one, or it is 10 times. That means in second food chain the hog is getting energy 10 times more than that of first. How much energy they are getting? 10 times more energy in second food chain. So the hog are getting more energy in second food chain, and they are getting 10 times more energy in comparison to the first food chain, because while transferring energy, it follows the law of 10%, and following the law of 10%, the successive organism, the successive trophic level, the successive member in any food chain is getting only 10% of energy. So following the law of 10% here, it is 100 joule, then 10 joule, 1 joule and 0.1 joule. So wherever the number of member will be lesser, the top consumer will get greater amount of energy. Here it is the next question, that means question number 5. Name a multicellular organism that divides by fragmentation. Why it is not possible for all multicellular organisms to divide by fragmentation? So the first part is name the organism which divide by fragmentation, multicellular organism. So it is Spirogyra. that is the algae, green algae, and it divides by fragmentation. When Spirogyra gets its maturity, it is being divided automatically into 3 or 4 parts, and all the fragmented part, they are reproducing further by cell division, and they are making the complete organism. Here the cells are simple, there is no clear cut division of level. That means in case of multicellular organism where there are organized structure, where there are clear cut division of level, there are different types of cells, and these different types of cells lead to the formation of different types of tissues, and these tissues lead to the formation of particular organ and further organ system, and it is quite impossible for a particular cell to divide or lead to the formation of all sorts of tissues. Suppose if in our body, suppose there is cut, our hand is being cut, amputated by any region, then for the hand it is really difficult to lead to the formation of the complex structures like heart, lungs, brain. So in case of multicellular organism, there is well organized structure, and it is quite impossible for those organisms to divide. Likewise, in case of Spirogyra, by fragmentation, because there is well organized structure and there is clear cut division of level. Only in case of multicellular organism, it is the zygote that is having the totipotency that leads to the formation of complete young one, because that cell is having the capacity that leads to the formation of different types of cells simply by cell division and cell differentiation that lead to the formation of complete young one. So there is another mode, there is another method, there is a specialized cell that is performing the function of reproduction, and that are the gametes that is being produced in the testis, in the ovary. That means there are sex organ, and that sex organ leads to the formation of sex cells, and that sex cells are gametes which fuses, and that leads to the formation of zygote, and this is the beauty of sexual reproduction. So in complex organism, it is quite impossible to reproduce by means of fragmentation like it happens in Spirogyra. Here, in case of Spirogyra and sea anemone, there is fragmentation, but in case of higher multicellular organism, where there is higher grade of organization, it is not possible, because fragmentation is not applicable for all multicellular organisms. It will be impractical, because here, due to clear-cut division of level, the specialized cells perform specialized functions. Likewise, the reproduction, that means the reproductive system, there the reproductive organ, they lead to the formation of reproductive cell, the sex cell, the gametes. That means reproduction by specialized cells, that is sex cell. That means they lead to the formation of gamete, and these gametes after union, that means after fertilization, leads to the formation of zygote, and that zygote is capable of growing, dividing and differentiating. Finally leads to the formation of complete individual, leads to the formation of young one. So in case of multicellular organism where there is more complexity, there is clear-cut division of level, there is specialization, at that place fragmentation will not do the purpose of reproduction, because for the cells which has been fragmented or which has been isolated, they are not capable of forming all the rest cells. Suppose tail of a dog has been cut, then for the cut part of the tail, it is very difficult to synthesize heart of the dog, liver of the dog, kidney of the dog, brain of the dog. So it is quite impossible in case of higher organism. It is simply in case of lower organism where similar cells are there. So they are proliferating by cell division and they are performing the fragmentation, the process of fragmentation. They are acting as a mode of reproduction, asexual reproduction. This is question number 5, or that means in spite of the fragmentation, either that or this one can be solved. So here, observe the given figure and name the organs or parts where following process takes place. कि इस डायग्राम में आपको ये बताना है ऑर्गन का नाम, ये सारे प्रोसेस कहाँ होते हैं. तो इसमें जो पहला है हमारा, दैट इज प्रोडक्शन ऑफ एग. So it is well known to all of you that the production of egg, that means gametogenesis, takes place in the sex organ, primary sex organ, and here it is female reproductive system, and this is the ovary where production of egg takes place. That means it is ovary. Ovary is responsible for gametogenesis, and especially in case of female it is oogenesis. Second one is site of fertilization. So fertilization takes place in this region, in fallopian tube, or it may be said as fallopian tube or oviduct. It is fallopian tube or oviduct. That is the place you can see in the diagram. It is here. Fertilization takes place. Next one is site of implantation. That means after fertilization, after union of gamete, there will be entry of sperm and egg will release, ovulation will take place, and here there will be fertilization, union of gamete, and then after that the fertilized egg, that is the zygote, will travel through ciliary beating of the oviduct, and in the uterus, in the endometrium of uterus, there will be implantation. That means implantation will take place in uterus or inner lining of uterus, or it may be termed as womb. Last one is the entry of sperm. The entry of sperm is being facilitated by the external genitalia, the external outlet through which the male copulatory organ will enter and discharge the male reproductive cell, that means the sperm. So the entry of sperm will take place through vagina and cervix. So answer will be vagina and cervix. So this is question number 5, or and it is meant for 2 marks. That means each questions having, each part of the question having half marks. That means if you are writing down oblique, you will get half marks. If you are writing down fallopian tube, you will get half marks. For uterus, you will get half marks, and for vagina and cervix, you will get half marks. So this one is the vagina or cervix. This one is the pathway of the entry of the sperm, and at the time of childbirth, both the structure are responsible. Therefore, it is also termed as birth canal. This one is the uterus. Now it is the turn for question number 6. That is, what part of flower changes into seed after fertilization? So it is the ovule that converts into seed, and complete ovary converts into fruit. So the answer of the first part will be ovule. Ovule gets converted into seed, and ovary as a whole gets converted into fruit. Root and shoot develops from which part of the embryo? So in embryo, inside seed, in between both the cotyledons, there are miniature plant, and that miniature plant having embryo, and it is having two parts, and that is radicle and plumule. So the part radicle is meant for the formation of root system, and the plumule will lead to the formation of shoot system. So this was for 2 marks. That means here you will get 1 marks and you will get half and half marks altogether. This is meant for 2 marks. Very easy question. Ovule going to convert into seed, radicle forms the root, and plumule forms the shoot system. This is question number 7. Very good question. What is the source of variation in populations of organisms? So the source of variation is during the formation of gamete, there is crossing over, or at the time of doubling the amount of DNA in cell division. What happens? The amount of DNA remains constant. So prior to dividing the cell, there is synthesis of DNA. That is, in interphase there is S phase, and in S phase there will be synthesis of DNA. That means there is replication of DNA, there is duplication of DNA, and during duplication of DNA, during the application of DNA, there is some error, and due to that error there is changing in the new DNA. That means due to error in copying of the DNA, it leads to creation of variation. That means error in DNA replication leads to variation. प्रेयर है जिसमें कि हम लोग गाते हैं, इतनी शक्ति हमें देना दाता, मन का विश्वास कमजोर होना, हम चले नेक रास्ते पे हमसे भूल कर भी कोई भूल होना. लेकिन नेचर में भूल करके भी कोई ना कोई भूल होना है. कब? ड्यूरिंग द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ DNA, ड्यूरिंग द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ genetic material, during replication of DNA, and this is the basis for creation of variation. So this is the first part. That means 1 marks will be given for this answer. That means error in DNA copying, replication or copying, DNA copying. Second part is in sexual reproduction, if each generation is to be the combination of the DNA copies from 2 pre-existing individuals, then each new generation will end up having twice the amount of DNA that the previous generations had. How this problem solve? ये कहना है कि DNA जो पेरेंट है, दोनों ही पेरेंट से आते हैं, तो क्या हो जाना चाहिए? जो अगला जनरेशन बनेगा, न्यू जनरेशन में क्या होंगे? DNA की अमाउंट डबल हो जाएगी. जैसे हम लोगों में क्या है? DNA मीन्स क्रोमोसोम. तो किसी भी सेल में क्रोमोसोम की संख्या 46, दैट मीन्स 23 पेयर. तो क्या होंगे? जो अगला जनरेशन होगा इसमें कितने होंगे? 46 प्लस 46 92. लेकिन ऐसा नहीं होता है, क्योंकि नेचर ने इसके लिए बहुत ही अच्छी प्रावधान कर रखे हैं कि ड्यूरिंग द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ गैमेट देयर इज मियोसिस. गैमेट के फॉर्मेशन के समय क्या होती है? मियोसिस होती है. और मियोसिस में क्या होता है? द अमाउंट ऑफ DNA, द नंबर ऑफ क्रोमोसोम रिड्यूसेस टू हाफ. तो क्या होंगे? जो भी गैमेट बनेंगे, मेल गैमेट एंड फीमेल गैमेट, दैट मींस स्पर्म एंड ओवम, they will contain only half the amount of DNA. That means 23 will be available in sperm and 23 will be available in ovum. And after union, after fertilization, 23 plus 23 will remain 46. That means the number of chromosome or the amount of DNA remains constant due to presence of meiosis in formation of gamete. In gametogenesis there is reductional division, and this is the beauty of sexual reproduction. What happens during gamete formation? There is reductional division, that is meiosis. As a result, gametes having half the amount of DNA, half the number of chromosome. Suppose in our case, in case of human being, male having 46 chromosome, female having 46 chromosome, but after the formation of gamete, during gamete formation there is meiosis, and their gamete are having only half the amount of DNA. That means 23 chromosome here, 23 chromosome here. That means sperm having 23 chromosome and ovum having 23 chromosome. And after fertilization, after union, they will lead to the formation of zygote. And zygote having 23 plus 23, 46. That means the number of chromosome remains constant due to reductional division in case of formation of gamete. Now this is question number 12 from ecology, that is our environment. In the era of industrialization, industrialization means there is combustion of fossil fuels and that leads to the production of carbon dioxide. Some pollutants means gases are increasing in our environment day by day, causing global warming. Global warming means gradual heating of the earth. That means the average temperature is going to be increased. That is global warming. So name two gases responsible for global warming. So for global warming, it is primarily carbon dioxide and methane. Along with that, water vapor is also responsible for global warming, as well as other gases like nitrous oxide. So the main gases, two gases responsible for global warming. So it is carbon dioxide and methane. That means you will get 1 marks, means half marks for carbon dioxide and half mark for methane. This is the gas responsible for global warming. Second one, how these gases are responsible for global warming. So what happens in global warming? When the infrared rays from the suns come to the earth, then the atmosphere, where oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, all the gases are there, water vapor is there, dust particles are there. So while coming from the sun, the infrared rays penetrate that atmospheric air and comes to the surface of earth, and it leads to the heating effect of the earth's surface. And after hitting the earth, it radiates the infrared rays. Now what happens? The infrared rays radiated by the earth, they are not capable of penetrating the atmospheric air, and primarily it is carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor that traps the radiant infrared rays from the earth's surface, and that leads to the increasing temperature of our environment. That keeps the temperature fair, that keeps the surface of the earth hot. That means for hotness, it is the amount of carbon dioxide, amount of methane, amount of water vapor that is responsible. So if the amount of carbon dioxide is going to be increased day by day due to industrialization, due to pollution, then what will happen? The temperature of the earth will raise, and due to raising of the earth's temperature, there will be its harmful effect. What will happen? The glaciers, the polar ice will melt, and ultimately the level of sea will go high, and due to higher level of sea water, the area which is nearby the seashore, they will become submerged in water, and there will be lack of pure water for drinking. There will be condition of drought, and due to higher temperature, there will be growth of insect, there will be growth of the disease causing pathogens, organisms. So ultimately, due to greenhouse effect, it will have its ill impact on our health too. The second part, the B, how these gases are responsible for global warming. They trap the infrared rays, the heat waves radiated by the earth's surface for 1 marks. You will get 1 marks after writing down this portion of answer. And C part, the third one, write two impacts of global warming on us. What will happen if it continues? There will be global warming, temperature will rise. Then what will happen to us? How it will affect human being? So first of all, there will be a scarcity of food, because the plant which are growing in comparatively lower temperature, they will not grow, their productivity will be lesser, so there will be a scarcity of food, outbreak of diseases, the pathogens, the bacteria, the viruses who are reproducing comparatively at higher temperature. So due to increasing in temperature, they will reproduce, they will multiply fastly, and there will be outbreak of diseases and melting of polar ice, glaciers, and due to that ultimately the level of sea will go high, and all the cities which is nearby the seashore, whose height is not much more than the level of sea, they will go inside water. That means water will be over flooded and there will be tsunami, and ultimately the cities which is nearby seashore, the developed cities like Mumbai, they will be inside the sea. So these are the impact of global warming on us. So altogether you will get 3 marks. The last part, it is also for 1 marks. That means you have to write down 2 implications. That means you will get half marks for 2 sentences or 2 effects. So this is all about question number 12. Now this is the turn for the next question, that is question number 13. Here Mendel crossed tall pea plant with dwarf pea plant. That means monohybrid cross is there to produce progeny from them and calculated the percentage of tall and short progeny. कितने लंबे हुए, कितने ठिगने हुए, कितने टॉल हुए, कितने ड्वार्फ हुए, इसका उन्होंने परसेंटेज कैलकुलेट किया था. किसमें? मोनोहाइब्रिड क्रॉस में. नाउ in A, work out a cross between pure tall pea plant and pure dwarf pea plant. कि tall और dwarf में जो क्रॉस कराया उन्होंने, इसका F2 जनरेशन तक के लिए आप क्रॉस को ड्रॉ कीजिए. और दूसरा, गिव द फिनोटाइपिक एंड जीनोटाइपिक रेशियो ऑफ F2 जनरेशन फॉर द एबव क्रॉस, कि इसका जीनोटाइपिक और फिनोटाइपिक रेशियो क्या है. तो इसमें क्या होंगे? द कैपिटल T रिप्रेजेंट्स the pure tall plant and a small t dwarf plant. So what will happen? They will form the gamete. Capital T will form gamete capital T, and a small t will lead to the formation of gamete having a small t. So in first generation, F1 generation, all the progeny will have one capital T and another small t. That means capital T and small t, and their phenotype will be tall. When there will be selfing among F1 generation, then what will happen? In F2 generation, one will be pure tall, that is capital T, two will be impure tall, that is one capital T, another small t, and one will be small t. That means in F2 generation, their phenotypic ratio will be 3:1, 3 tall, 1 dwarf, and their genotypic ratio will be 1:2:1. That means 1 pure tall, 2 impure tall, and 1 dwarf. So this is the answer of this question number 13. This is pure monohybrid cross done by Mendel. Here you can see this is the parent, that is capital T, that is pure tall, and this one is dwarf. Here in question it is pure dwarf, that must be only dwarf. No need of writing down pure, because dwarf is dwarf. So parents are capital T, small t, tall and dwarf. Their gamete will be simply one type of gamete is going to form here. This will form the gametes having only capital T, and this is only a small t. So after union, after formation of zygote, it will be capital T, small t. This is their genotype, that is impure tall, but it is phenotypically tall. So all will be tall in F1 generation. After selfing of F1 generation, that means this capital T, small t, there is hybridization. Then what will happen? They will form the gametes. Then what will happen? This capital T, this small t will separate, will form the gamete. Again here capital T and small t, and after union it will lead the formation of capital T means tall, capital T and a small t lead to the formation of tall. Again a small t and capital T, tall, a small t, dwarf. So in F2 generation, these are the result of F2 generation. Result of F2 generation. What happens in F2 generation? there are 3 tall and 1 dwarf. In F2 generation, 3 tall and 1 dwarf. This is the phenotype. This is the external appearance. So the ratio, phenotypic ratio will be 3:1. Again, this one is pure tall. This 2 is impure tall and 1 is dwarf. So genotypically they are 1:2:1. So this is all about the Mendel's monohybrid cross, and exactly that has been given in your text. So it was for 3 marks. That means cross 1 marks, again this part 1 marks and this one for 1 marks. Altogether it is meant for 3 marks. तो आज के लिए इतना ही. मिलते हैं हम लोग फिर कल जो रिमेनिंग क्वेश्चंस हैं उसके साथ. तो आप लोग वीडियो को शेयर करें, लाइक करें और कमेंट करें, so that I may enhance our input to make you people understand the things as it is. जो बातें हैं, जो फैक्ट है, जो रियलिटी है, that must be crystal clear in your brain. So thank you once again all of my viewers.